So today's reading is from a story called The Real Meaning of Peace. And the story says, there was once a king who offered a prize to the artist who would paint the best picture of peace. Many artists tried. The king looked at all the pictures, but there were only two he really liked, and he had to choose between them. One picture was of a calm lake. The lake was a perfect mirror for peaceful, towering mountains all around it. Overhead was a blue sky with fluffy white clouds. All who saw this picture thought it was a perfect picture of peace. The other picture had mountains too, but these were rugged and bare, and above was an angry sky from which the rain fell and which lightning played. Down the side of the mountain tumbled a foaming waterfall. This did not look very peaceful at all. But when the king looked closely, he saw behind the waterfall a tiny bush growing in a crack in the rock. In the bush, a mother bird had built her nest. There, in the midst of the rush of angry water, sat the mother bird on her nest in perfect peace. The king chose the second picture. Because peace isn't something that just randomly happens to us. And it doesn't always look like we think it should. But lasting inner peace is something that we truly choose.
So welcome to those of you who may have just arrived in the sanctuary. I have people moving. People were sitting up here, now they're sitting way back there. They're like all over the place. It's peace. So the theme for the month of May has been compassion. I care for the poor. And my talk title today is Inner Peace. On a global level, I really believe that people want a more peaceful world. That having a more peaceful world would really be ideal for everyone, for all living creatures. Now, however, that's not always the experience that we are experiencing or that the planet is having in general, this idea of global peace. Most people have really no idea how to bring peace into their own individual lives, let alone global peace or peace to the whole world. Now, the bottom line is that if we are to truly experience global peace or peace all over the planet, then we must first and foremost experience that peace within ourselves. This is that idea of inner peace. And inner peace refers to a state of mentally and spiritually being at peace. Don't you hate it when they use the word in this definition, that peace? Mentally and spiritually at peace. But it's a state of being. It's a state of being. It's not a place that we go to. It's not a thing that we have to do. It's a state of being, a state of calm, of serenity, and of tranquility. It's the absence of inner disturbances such as anger or worry, doubt, hatred, ill will, judgment. It's a deliberate state of psychological and spiritual harmony. Deliberate, meaning, like the story says, it's our choice. So it's a deliberate state of psychological and spiritual harmony despite the probability, not just the potential, but the probability of disturbances. Because each one of us is going to have some disturbances from time to time in our life. Now, just like on the global level, I believe that it is the state that each of us would really choose to live our lives in. And yet I would also venture to guess that it's not the state that we live from or the state that we experience our life from all of the time. Now, the fundamental truth is that peace is a quality of God that we arrived on the planet with. It's one of those little pieces of that hologram that is at the core of our being. It's really the truth of who we are. We can't go searching for peace. It can't be bought. We don't have to go somewhere else or do anything else or be anyone else. We don't have to wait for the circumstances in our lives to become a certain way. We don't have to wait for them to change, nor do we have to wait for the people in our lives to change. The truth is that we can choose to be at peace no matter what is going on around us. We can turn inward and we can get in touch with that inner peaceful being that's at the center of our being. Now, because inner peace is who we are, and because inner peace is an inner state, then we have that ability to choose. We have the ability to be peaceful at any given moment and in any situation, but that doesn't mean that it's always easy to do. In fact, a lot of the time it's not. There are many reasons for it not always being easy. To begin with, our minds are constantly chattering. That little monkey mind that we sometimes call it. They're constantly chattering. We have from anywhere from 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. Amazing, yes? And according to some research, as much as 98% of those hundreds upon hundreds of thoughts are the exact same thoughts that we had the day before. And even more significant, up to 80% of them can be negative thoughts. Most of us aren't even aware that we have all of those thoughts going on. We're unconscious to that fact. So just sitting here this morning, just take a moment to think about how full and how polluted our consciousness must be, filled with so many thoughts that in actuality could be up to 80% not conducive to our well-being, to the well-being of our lives, or to the well-being of our relationships, to the well-being of our communities, to the well-being of our countries, to the well-being of the planet. It's also true that our minds are connected to everyone else's mind. That our minds are connected consciously and unconsciously to this thing we call race consciousness. Race consciousness is all of the thoughts that have ever been thought throughout all of time. So as you can imagine, race consciousness is often filled with a tremendous amount of negative energy. Fear, doubt, worry, confusion, frustration, anger, judgment, criticism, and all kinds of crazy. All of this clutters our inner space, our inner sanctuary. We also involve ourselves in all kinds of distractions. Now, most of them involve technology of some kind. Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, watching non-stop news feeds throughout the day on the television or on the internet, constantly checking our emails or spending much too much time on our cell phones. All of this pulls us, all of this distracts us from the peace and the stillness that we wish we would be experiencing. And not only does all of it distract us, but all of that information that we expose ourselves to through the media, through social networking, and through race consciousness itself also fills and pollutes that inner space. It's becoming a little bit more clear why it's hard, yes? Conflict To mention one more, conflict has also been really a part of our lives. It's always a part of our lives, whether we're in conflict with other people or whether we're fighting against ourselves. The possibility for that to exist in our lives is also always present. And so ultimately, we lose touch with that aspect of ourselves that is peace itself. We just lose contact with it. As I said before, we will never experience peace externally until we experience inner peace within ourselves. And the truth of the matter is that that ability lies within us. It is our choice. It is our responsibility to ourselves and to the world. To find inner peace, we have to really declutter that inner space, that inner sanctuary. To find inner peace, we have to find some inner stillness. Now, one way to clean out the clutter in our inner space is to really guard the garden of our mind. The invitation is to become aware of what we are saying, to become aware of what we're saying about ourselves, about each other, and about the world itself. And the invitation is to become more aware about what we are allowing to come into our minds from the outside in. Swami Bhaktanana has 4 very simple rules to cleanse our inner space. The first rule is to say what you mean and mean what you say. Now, in the first part of that, we are asked to say what we mean. For example, let's say someone asks us to do something that we don't really want to do. And so we come up with some kind of an excuse like, I can't make it, or I'm too busy. Now, it's not that we can't do it, it's that we're choosing not to do it. But when we make up excuses about that act of making up those excuses creates clutter in our inner space. Instead of stillness and inner peace, we are now holding on to these little white lies. In the second part of this rule, we're asked to mean what we say. If we're honest with ourselves, we sometimes say things in passing out of obligation or out of habit, things that we don't really intend on following through with. For example, we might say to someone, I will call you soon, or let's do lunch. Now, sometimes when we say these really seemingly casual remarks, we will follow up on them, but at other times, even while we're saying it, we know that we're not going to. We know that what we're saying is not the truth. And so these two become little white lies that we internalize as guilt. And it's hard to have inner peace when your consciousness is filled with guilt. Now, it might seem like inconsequential, but like it can add up. The second rule is don't say anything to anyone that you can't say to everyone. So when we participate in gossip, we spread drama and create negative energy and inner conflict within our own selves. We pollute our own inner space through that. So the invitation is to commit to not saying anything to anyone that you can't say to anyone or everyone. The third rule is don't say inside what you cannot say outside. Many of us are extremely critical about ourselves, and most of the time we would never tell the world what we say to ourselves. I get a couple of mms. Now, whether that's blame or judgment or criticism or any other form of negative self-talk, the invitation is to not even entertain any thought within ourselves that we cannot say out loud to anyone. The fourth rule is don't say it unless it's true, useful, or kind. Some of us have so much inner chatter that it just like spills out of us. Talking just to be talking is very draining on us, and it's very draining on the people around us. Plus, the more things that we say, the more things that are actually being fed into our own minds and once again are cluttering our inner space. So the invitation is to be conscious of what we are saying and to only say it if what we are about to say is some really authentic statement from our heart or something that could be useful to someone or in some situation or some words of kindness or compassion. Other ways that we can reclaim the inner peace that we arrived on the planet with really basically fall under the heading of letting go. Letting go. Now, some of these can include such things like letting go of the need to control. Nobody has to raise any hands or anything. Now, there is a legend about an Eastern monarch plagued by worries and harassed at every turn, who invites all of his counselors and wise men to a meeting. And at the meeting, he asks them to formulate a motto, some few magical words that would assist him when he's in times of distress or times of trial. It must be brief enough to be engraved on a ring so that he can always have it in front of him. It must be appropriate for every single situation, so just as appropriate to use in adversity as it is in prosperity. It must be a motto that's wise and true and endlessly enduring so that everyone can use it to guide them throughout their entire life. So the counselors and the wise men go off and they debate and they reason and they pray. And finally, they were able to come back to the monarch with the magic words for every change or every chance, words to fit each and every single situation, words to ease the heart and the mind in all circumstances. Does anyone know what those words were? This too shall pass. The words that they came back with, that they engraved on the ring, were this too shall pass. And when we live from this idea of this too shall pass, we have an unconditional relationship with life itself. A relationship in which we are willing to show up for whatever life may offer us and to simply be with it rather than trying to control it or manipulate it or judge it or edit it or to change it in any way. It is a relationship that we are willing to accept the whole and not hold back on any aspect of life. In his book, The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle says, "I have learned to offer no resistance to what is. I have learned to allow the present moment to be and to accept the impermanent nature of things and conditions. Thus, I have found peace." Another letting go would be the letting go of dwelling in the past. continually hanging on to the past, our stories, our beliefs, our old patterned way of being, our judgments, our criticisms, our shame, our guilt, and any other emotion that we might be experiencing about what we are holding on to will never allow for the experience of peace within us. It will never allow it. There won't be room. Now, there's many reasons why we choose to live in the past. But the truth of it is that all of them are pointless. The only place that we are going to ever experience inner peace is right now, right here, in this perfect now moment. A couple more letting go would be the letting go of needing to be perfect and the need to have everyone like you. These are a couple that I'm intimately aware of. As a 5-year-old, I told myself that I needed to be perfect or the people that I loved would leave me. I lived from this belief for a long, long time. And then if you couple that with the truth or the fact that I am a 2 on the Enneagram, a 2, which is a people pleaser, it's probably not a big stretch for you to be able to recognize that there would be absolutely no peace anywhere in a life lived from a belief that I have to be perfect, or a life lived from a need to have everyone like me. I walked around on eggshells all of the time trying to be what everyone needed me to be, even when I didn't even know what that was. Even when it was very clear that there was a few people in the room and each one of them wanted something different from me, sometimes like completely the opposite thing. Now, I really reached rock bottom in 2005 when I experienced the ending of a relationship, the transition of my mother. So the ending of the relationship was in April, the transition of my mother was in June, and the loss of my beloved cat of 18 years in October. The biggest issue for me was really that I had no concept of peace to fall back on. I really had no idea even what it was, or how to find it, or how to bring it into my life. In 2006, I began in earnest, pun intended, to take classes at the Chicago Center for Spiritual Living. Now, through these classes, I really began to understand that I was responsible for the experiences of my life. That in truth, that I live my life from the inside out, and that if I ever wanted to experience peace, I had to first experience peace within me. I began to realize that in order to be able to do that, I had to let go of that belief that I had to be perfect. I had to let go of trying to please everyone all of the time. I distinctly remember the moment in which I said to myself, I choose peace. The moment in which I began to let go of old beliefs that no longer served me, and the moment in which I began to invite peace to be the overarching feeling that I experienced in my life. And I'm talking about all of my life, the ups and the downs. Now, as one can imagine, I'm a little better at it in some moments than others. In fact, I had a little moment this morning. But what I can say is that that moment of saying that I choose peace created a shift in me simply by saying that it was now going to become the underlying intention of my entire life. Another letting go that we are encouraged to do is to let go of holding on to bitterness. Bitterness and anger are really seductive emotions. They make us feel justified, self-righteous, and they protect us against, or we feel like they protect us against getting hurt again, or from being too vulnerable in any particular situation or any particular relationship. But the truth is that bitterness and anger eat us up from the inside out. They build walls between ourselves and the people in our lives, and they really close us off from all of the infinite possibilities and opportunities that life has, that life offers us to be able to grow or to heal or to really expand into our highest and best. The cure to anger and bitterness is forgiveness. And forgiveness is the opening to our inner peace. Plain and simple. We can really expand on that idea of letting go of bitterness and say to let go of beating yourself up about mistakes. Bitterness and anger don't just go out from us to the other people in our world, but it actually can be turned inward upon ourselves. And when we refuse to forgive ourselves, we enter into a never-ending cycle of self-hatred, pain, and regret. There's absolutely no room for inner peace when we are living our lives from that space. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes with absolutely no exceptions. And so the invitation is to think about them as opportunities for growth. It's just missing the mark. I'll do it better next time. And lastly, letting go of the need to be right. Nobody says anything. Now, there's a parable about a group of blind men who have never seen an elephant before. Many of you may have heard this before. They learn and they conceptualize what an elephant is by touching it. Now, each blind man feels a different part of the elephant's body, but only one part. So maybe the side, or maybe the tusk, or maybe the trunk, or maybe the tail, or maybe the ear. They only feel one part. And then they describe the elephant based on that limited experience. As you can imagine, the descriptions of what an elephant is are very, very different from one of the men to the next, to the next, to the next. Each one of them totally believes that their description is absolutely right. It is the truth. And so if it's the truth for them, then everybody else's description has to be wrong, that they're not right. In fact, they're probably lying. They're probably not honest. And in the story, they actually come to blows about the whole thing. So the parable of the story is that we all have a tendency to claim absolute truth based on our limited subjective experience, and then to completely ignore, or even come to blows about somebody else's limited subjective experience, even though y'all might be equally true. So the invitation is to let go of the need to be right. We are not always right. The bottom line is that nobody feels totally peaceful all of the time. But the more that we can be aware of the thoughts and the underlying beliefs that we have that really disrupt our inner peace, to be able to let go of those thoughts and beliefs and then to step into a new way of being in the world, then the more that we allow that inner peace to be our experience, the more that we allow that inner peace to come through us out into the world. So the invitation today is to choose inner peace over the need to control everything. Choose inner peace over the need to be perfect. Choose inner peace over the need to be liked by everyone. Choose inner peace over dwelling in the past. Choose inner peace over holding on to bitterness. Choose inner peace over beating ourselves up for a mistake. And choose inner peace over being right, over the need to be right. Now, I don't even know what words I would use to really describe, I don't even know if I could, to describe that shift that occurred in me the moment that I declared to myself and to the world that I choose inner peace. So, the invitation today is for everyone here, everyone at home, to simply repeat after me. And as Janelle would say, like you mean it. Today, I choose inner peace.
Today, I choose inner peace.
And so it is. So it is. Please turn within. I love this time, this opportunity to turn within, to allow myself to shut out the world and to turn my attention solely inward, to see only that inner sanctuary, that space and place that I call God, that spark of the divine. To allow myself to align with it, to remember that it is the absolute truth of me, that everywhere I am, in all situations, in all of my relationships, God is. As the presence of peace, joy, creativity, love, wisdom, abundance, and grace. And just as I know that this is my truth, I know that it is the truth for each and every single one of us here today. That truly we are connected to God in ways that can never be separated. Connected to each other through this golden thread of God's stuff that weaves itself throughout all of life. And connected to life itself. This life that is always for us and never against us. And it is from this place of unity that I speak these words about and for each of us, individually and collectively, as the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living, truly knowing that there is a way that we can live our lives from the peace that we arrived here as. That this inner peace exists within us. I deny that there is anything in the external world that is more powerful than that presence of peace that is within us. And I claim ease and grace for each of us around doing all of the things that allow those disruptions to fall by the wayside. To live in the present moment. To be open to new ideas and to honor new ways of thinking. To say what we mean and mean what we say. to hold high the high watch for each of us, to know the truth, to see the face of God in everyone and everything. Because I know that we are spiritual beings having a human incarnation, and that we have everything that we need within us to live a magnificent life, to live a life that we love getting up in the morning for, to live a life that works for everyone. It begins with inner peace and radiates out to global peace, and for that I am grateful. I loose these words into the law that only ever says yes, clothing my words in form even as they are spoken, and so I speak them and release them with love and gratitude and full expectation of their manifestation, letting go and letting God be God. And I invite each of us to anchor this prayer for ourselves and for each other simply by saying, "And so it is, and so it is." Thank you.